Welcome to On Top of the Covers, a weekly podcast by Orlove dedicated to all the creative visionaries, entrepreneurs, artists, makers, disruptors around the world. All of you guys are really doing amazing things. A lot of people who tune in and or who are contributing in some fashion to the culture of music, right? And we're constantly featuring inspirational stories of people contributing to that culture, how they do it creatively, artistically, personally, professionally. I'm Matt Gottesman. I'm your host and director of the Orlove brands. And you guys, can connect with me at Matt Gottesman on Insta. And, we always say music is one of the biggest connectors of the world. It's definitely a common bond we're all sharing. And we're opening up the conversations of art, its contributors, their missions. And we're definitely showing you unconventional ways and different paths to success. And so we've got another really, really great episode. I'm really excited about this. Actually, I'm excited about every guest because it's interesting to see how much music, the culture of music is changing in this dynamically changing paradigm shift that we're so beautifully experiencing. And, I've been saying for a while that the creators are in control. So, and we're going to be talking about these rapidly growing changes in the music landscape worldwide because you're seeing more creative ownership. You're seeing because of health, and other reasons, the change in events. We're seeing the change in way people are distributing their music. We're seeing how PR is being done differently. We're seeing everything from distribution and creativity to technology. I mean, it is a rapidly changing landscape. So I have the perfect guest for today, Josh Karpf. He's the director of operations for a global music PR agency called Jukebox. And I've gotten to know him a little bit over the last few months. And he's got 15 years experience in music and events, working with some of the biggest brands, artists, festivals, and events in the industry. So he's got, I'm sure, quite a few stories to share. And he was previously the brand manager for Ministry of Sound, and he was running their global events and tours division, managing over 100 events worldwide and overseeing marketing campaigns for a variety of artists and brands. Guys, that is not an easy job. So, we have to really give him a lot of respect for the time and energy that takes. And he's previously built and established various market-leading event concepts across the UK, continues to work with the biggest event promoters and venues around the world, developing new and creative strategies. And he also comes with broad marketing experience. So having previously been worked with social media channel The Hook, and his current role as director of operations for global music PR agency Jukebox. He is definitely utilizing his experience to find and form new relationships between brands in and outside of the industry. We like that part where it says in and out of the industry, outside of the industry, especially since here we're very out of the box thinkers. And, why contain ourselves to any one thing? And using music as a platform to connect to new audiences. Josh, grateful to have you here. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you very much.
Right, I'll be the ultimate hype man. So
I've got some big clout to live up to now. I need to deliver. It's just no pressure. But
no pressure at all. Right. So I love your background, and I can only imagine how many stories you probably have. And I hope that whichever ones you feel called to share, we will here in a minute. But we do have a concept that we developed where you've heard on podcasts and shows, rapid fire questions. And normally people ask them at the beginning or at the end. We thought it'd be really cool and disruptive in a lot of ways to just do the questions first. Plus, it brings up a really good, how a person, what some of their things that they love the most are. And it just draws in really great content. So if you're ready, we've got 4 questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Fire them at me.
All right. So if all music is wiped from the face of the earth, it's just gone. You have 3 albums you're allowed to save that you can only listen to those 3 albums for the rest of your life. What would they be?
Funnily enough, I've been asked similar questions like this before, so I've got some ammo of answers ready to throw at you for this one. Okay, so 3 albums. Do compilations count?
Yeah, any albums or compilations? Yes.
Okay, Bob Marley legend.
Ooh.
Bob Marley is my everything in music, so that's definitely going on the list. Bob Marley legend, Fugees The Score, and Pink Floyd The Wall.
Those are 3 classic albums right there.
Can't. Nothing beats old school.
No, not at all. I mean, those are 3 legendary albums. I definitely have those in my top 10.
Yeah, I think Fuji. I'm pretty sure there was Fuji's. It was either The Score or Extinction Level Event by Busta Rhymes. That they were my 2 first hip hop albums. I'm a big hip hop fan. That was my first real introduction into that genre, and I've never looked back really. So, yeah, big Fuji's fan.
Man, those 3 classics, and I saw Busta in concert, and when he did "Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See," right? Put your hands, hands up. I'd never seen, and I've been to a lot of concerts, a lot of different genres. I'd never seen an entire arena when the music came on, where it was about 40,000 people, and there was a wave where every person they were all in sync, like every person, not just some parts of it. I'd never ever the energy that man could give out. I was like, is this happening? Like you could just feel the entire arena all in sync. I'd never experienced anything like that. It's Busta, but yeah, these are 3 classics.
Busta's actually, he's one of the only, considering he's up there with my favorite rappers. He's one of the only ones I've not seen live. But I had a similar experience to what you just described at Jay-Z at Glastonbury, which was, I was front, that night was my 21st birthday. I lost everyone that I was with. I spent 6 hours at the main stage, just gradually pushing forwards, and I was front row for Jay-Z. And the entire time, there was 170,000 people or something behind me, 150,000. And someone just commandeered the whole front 5 rows and just went, everyone hook arms. So everybody hooked arms, because the sway of the crowd was just insane, and the pressure coming from behind us. And we just kind of made this human barrier that we stood there, and I was able to get one hand up. but it was amazing. Amazing.
That's incredible. I mean, that's some powerful energy, right? In settings like that. That's Jay-Z. I mean, that's a whole other. We'll go on a tear, I think, on that. That's one of my favorite artists of all time, and just also in terms of his mindset. Speaking of a person, an influential person. So question number 2, name an influential person, living or non. You can go as far back as you want, or they can still be here. If you could interact with for one night, who would they be?
Bob, without question, without seconds thought. Bob Marley, all day, every day. I would give anything in the world to sit and have a conversation with him and have a spliff, obviously.
Right, but, obviously.
And maybe have a kick about as well. He was a good footballer, but yeah, Bob is absolutely, without question.
Yeah, I feel like he wasn't even of this planet. Like I always love his interviews where the interviewers, they're so, kind of like at the this lower level, talking about his fame and talking about his, money, and talking about his art and all this stuff. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, I'm just here to for purpose.
Yeah,
so right.
He's just amazing. Everything about him, every song, his aura, everything. The children he's produced, who are also all incredible in their own right. Like he's brilliant. The influence he's had on music is undeniable.
Incredible. I'd agree on that one. Both on his influence, and then actually having a one full night just to talk about anything and everything.
I'd give anything. I've been to Jamaica once, but I didn't go to Kingston. My sister and her fiance went over, and I think they visited the house, and so it's on my bucket list of things to do. But yeah, not yet, not done it yet.
Next year, this year.
I hope so.
Okay, so question number 3.
Yeah. In
your opinion, what's the best music-focused film of all time for you? Just for you, it doesn't have to be like, this is the best film for everybody. And it could be a documentary. It could be just a fiction. It doesn't matter. Just something that had music centric to it.
So I would say, have you ever seen Pink Floyd The Wall with Bob Geldof?
Yes.
So that's my choice. I'm going to pick that. However, what you just said there about documentaries, I recently watched, which my mum has been on me for the last 3 years or something to watch this. Have you seen Searching for Sugar Man?
No, I haven't. And everybody says you have to see it.
Man, It's amazing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely amazing. And for so long, my mum was like, she saw it in the cinema. She's like, "You got to go see this film. It's amazing. It's amazing." And it's just not. But it was on TV recently, and half an hour into the film, I was on Amazon buying his records. He's just incredible. And I don't know. I won't give away too much about the film or the documentary because people are going to see it. Or if you've not seen it already, go and see it or see it. But the story is just unbelievable. You cannot believe the story unless you watch it. And if this thing didn't exist, you just would never, ever, ever believe it. And it's crazy to think how good this guy is and how amazing his voice is and the music that he was making, and that he isn't this global superstar now. But yeah, that's awesome. But Pink Floyd The Wall was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. I have watched that in a variety of different mental states. And it's a very different experience each time, depending on what the catalyst was. But it's incredible. It really is incredible. If you've ever listened to that album, as I'm sure you have, or lots of people have, that album, you can only listen to that album from start to finish. There's no shuffling, there's no jumping about there. It is a story like no other album has ever created. And to have a visual to that in a feature-length movie is just incredible.
The first and only time I ever watched that was an altered state. So you have me curious to actually watch it, non-altered.
Yeah, it is a very different experience, but the music is the music does the talking. It's just incredible. It really is. It's all I can say about it. It's amazing.
And Searching for Sugar Man, I think I had started it one night. I was exhausted, but I highly recommend everybody checking it out. It's been recommended so many times, and so I'm actually excited to dive into it. I think I'm going to just watch it during the day after, so that way, or an early Friday evening. But everybody says the same thing. Yeah, it's
awesome. And I have to say as well, I bought this as soon as I bought that record. It came like the next day or something. Which was I bought his first album. As soon as it came, I stuck it on my record player and put it on, and the sound, I don't need to tell you guys or anyone, the sound on a vinyl compared to a CD, just it's a different level it's a different experience altogether. I put it on, I sat there, I listened to the whole album, and you just get completely transported into that world.
As digital as I am and grew up, I'm an analog fan. And analog is you can't replicate analog in the digital world at all. The sound you get from analog is just
the crack. It's that crackle at the beginning when the needle touches the record and you just hear that crackle. You're like, it's just the authenticity behind it. You cannot replicate that on a CD or in any digital format. You just can't.
True, so true. Okay, fourth and final question. Important book, podcast, or Audible, anything in particular that has helped you navigate your creativity and passion?
A tough one. I'm not a reader. However, I would say that, like you said before, I'm very much about thinking outside the box, and I'm sure we'll talk about other examples of that as we go along in this conversation. But Freakonomics. For me, I guess, has had the most impact in that sense, because that book is all about thinking outside the box and how you apply crazy theories to real life situations. My favorite chapter in one of those books was why do drug dealers still live with their mums, which is, and it's just brilliant. And you start under the headlines of these the headings of the chapters make no sense. Like you look at them, you're like, there can't be any reality to this. And then you read it and you're like, well, that makes complete sense. But these guys are just thinking so far outside the box to create these analogies and these explanations that it just sucks you in. And it's amazing. I think there was a second one, Super Freakonomics as well. But yeah, I would say, I've read a few autobiographies and stuff, which are cool. But I think in terms of how I apply my mindset to what I do, that has probably had the most effect.
That's a great book. Just a great series in general. Okay. So I want to shift a little bit of the focus. I know we were going to talk a lot about the changing landscape of what's happening culturally with music, and both as an industry, inside the industry and outside of it.
Yeah,
But for context, I would love for you to go, as far back as you want, because you've got a significant background in the music space with the brands and the events and the artists, and there's a lot going on in there. So just for context for the audience, like, go as far back as you want, like, but we would love to hear a little bit of the journey for sure.
for sure. So I guess, I mean, music. I've been in love with music forever. I kind of grew up. My mom and my dad are polar opposites on the music, on what they listen to. My dad loves his Motown and like old disco and that kind of vibe, and my mum was very into her classic rock and Christopher Cross and Simply Red and these kind of guys. Where my dad was throwing Temptations and the Four Tops and stuff at me. So I had like a real difference of music taste coming from both sides of them. And then from my cousins and stuff, one of my cousins introduced me to Bob Marley. The other one introduced me to the Fugees. So I've got them to thank for a huge amount. But yeah, I guess I was thinking about this recently, like the electronic music in particular, I didn't really grasp until university. It wasn't in the charts. It wasn't a big thing. Obviously, when I was growing up, we didn't have social media or all these things with music being absorbed at us or thrown at us from every single angle. So you heard what was on the radio or what was on Top of the Pops, which is the UK show, if you know what that is, or in magazines or whatever. And this was pop. It was pop. And unless you're getting all these kind of old school influences from family members and parents and cousins and stuff, that's what you knew. I wouldn't say by any means at all I was involved in any kind of underground scene when I was like pre going to uni. But that very, very quickly changed as I went into university and kind of had all these clubs opening up. And my first experience in organizing or working with any events was for an event called Love Do at Leeds. I was at uni in Leeds. And that was kind of my first year at university, and loads of us were all working with them and promoting and selling tickets and doing guest lists and flyering in the street in the rain and all kinds of stuff. And the first event was Maceo from De La Soul. That was the first event I ever worked across. He was headlining. The club was absolutely, there was like 3,000 people in the club. And I remember just standing on the stairs with the main promoter looking down at this club, and it was crazy. And I was like, yeah, this is it. This is the direction I'm going in now. And we ended up going back to the after party, and Maceo, this was my first real whitey experience, I would say, really, because he's sitting there, the guy whips out, he's whipping out the biggest bag of weed I've ever seen in my life, held by one man, and he's holding it and he's just rolling these huge spliffs and passing them around, and I'm like, okay, is this what these are like? And it kind of went on from there. Yeah, it was an awesome experience. It was the first time I really interacted with a celebrity, if you like, in that kind of respect. I hadn't really experienced anything like that before, and I was immediately immersed in that space. And also you can't explain to someone who's never had that feeling what the feeling is like standing on a stage or a crowd, on stairs, or looking out at a crowd that you have put into that venue or festival. You just can't explain that buzz. Everybody, I guess, feels it in different ways across their different industries, but it's an incredible feeling. And the second I had it, I knew that was what I wanted to keep building. And then I guess from there, it kind of went on. Leeds, I was in uni. I was at university for 3 years. I stayed in Leeds for 3 years after university to continue running events. And I was working on various house and techno stuff and loads of different types of events. And we brought brands and we launched brands around the UK and into Scotland. I took stuff back up north where I'm from in Glasgow and Edinburgh and Aberdeen and Birmingham and Leeds and London and Manchester. We did. And it was just, it really quickly snowballed for me. I got really, really immersed in that scene very quickly and never looked back, really. And I guess that continued through all the way through uni and living in Leeds. And when I moved down to London, I was a little bit of a stopgap, I guess, when I moved down, and I was working, like I said, for this social media company who are now called The Hook. But at the time there was still some kind of relationship with music and events. It was kind of heavily focused on like student events and offers and discounts and stuff for student experiences. But I then went and set up my own, I left them and set up my own events company running drum and bass events for under 18s, which is a huge market, a huge market. And actually, and it now seems, at the time, running events for that age group was not something that everybody did. There were other companies doing it, but we are living in a world now where Gen Z, these 14 to 18-year-olds are so much older than I was, or you were, or any of us were when we were that age. They're living in a different world. The access they've got with social media, and they are so much more knowledgeable about the world than we ever were. They know so much more. It is terrifying, and it really is. So I was set up that company, and we were doing that with a good friend of mine who we ran a loads of events with together in Leeds, and we ran that really successfully for 2 or 3 years. Running events for that age group is not easy, and we hit a lot of roadblocks with getting support from police and council and licensing. We ended up getting chased out of various different cities by police, and they kept putting blocks on us in different venues. And at the time as well, doesn't exist anymore, but there was a risk assessment form that in London called the 696, which any event promoter in London who worked across that period will know about. And it was really used to stop events where the police just didn't want to happen. And a lot of that was black music, it's come from that world, from drum and bass artists to grime. And those scenes in particular they found it really, really tough in those times. The amount of times we had artists pulled off lineups just for no reason, and we had to go into police stations and licensing and fight to allow people to come on board was just insane. So thankfully, that risk assessment doesn't exist anymore. I think the grime scene in particular fought really hard to get that removed, and it now no longer exists. So that was a really difficult thing for us. And it got to a point where we were running around and holding events in whatever city would support us, and it just became unattainable, basically. So we still have the brand, we still do little bits here and there, but my focus kind of shifted, because around that same time, I then also kind of had the opportunity at Ministry of Sound. And that was where I saw my future at that time anyway. So I kind of made the move over there. And I was with Ministry for 7 years, and kind of grew through the ranks there to basically heading up and running the events and tours division, as you said at the beginning. Worked with you guys and with Matt, and that's how we initially met at the beginning, and worked with you guys a couple of years ago, and that's how. And we've worked across loads of stuff in the US and various other territories, and I ran around 1,000 events worldwide across those 6 years with loads of different artists and across various different genres. Worked with some awesome promoters and some amazing festivals and venues, and just some awesome people. Built an amazing network of friends and contacts, most of which I still work with regularly now. And then the pandemic hit, and that changed everything really for everyone. Timing wise, actually, for me, it couldn't have been worse. I left Ministry to go freelance in December 2019, and then shit hit the fan in January. So the plan was go freelance for a bit. I was discussing some other things, and then let's see what happens. And then, so I went freelance, and then the sector collapsed, essentially. And it was a quiet few months. I was having lots of conversations with people, and we were putting plans in place for next year. And I work with an amazing festival that I run all the programming for down in Surrey, just outside London, called One Out Festival. So I was working heavily with those guys, which I still am. So I kept busy. I kept as busy as any of us could. Bookers and programmers, listen, it was a really, really tough time, and it's still a really tough time. I am lucky enough, or fortunate enough, I should say, that my experience has been really broad in what I've done. I've not been linear in what I've done. Yes, I've been a booker, I've been a promoter, I've done everything, marketing, all kinds of stuff right across the board for different kinds of clients. So I was able to adapt that and adapt my focus and really shift towards a marketing and PR space, with the opportunity to then pick things up on the event side of things once things came back to life, because this pandemic isn't going to be here forever. We are going to be able to dance again together and hug in a field, although it doesn't feel like that still, but we will. So I joined the team over at Jukebox in August last year, and it has been incredible since then. Really is. Obviously, still a very difficult time in that a big part of what we do is supporting in PR and marketing for events and festivals. And that's not been happening. But we also work with artists and record labels and run digital campaigns and work with some incredible platforms like you guys and Under the Covers and some amazing tech stuff. And it's been incredible to see the industries and companies that have been built off the back of the pandemic. I've said throughout it, and I still feel the grass will be a lot greener on the other side of this. I think it will level out the playing field a lot with artists and bookings, and the way artist fees have exploded over the last 10 years has just been insane. So to be able to level that playing field again and is important, and it's unfortunately needed something like this for that to happen, although I'm not seeing that at the moment as it goes. Yeah, it's been an incredible journey with Jukebox so far, and we are very fortunate to have remained relatively busy throughout this, which is difficult because it's difficult to take pleasure in that when the majority of our friends and contacts and network out there are still struggling. But we appreciate how fortunate we are to being able to adapt and sustain and remain relevant and keep running campaigns and doing some awesome stuff throughout this.
I have a bunch of notes I was taking while you were talking, but it's interesting to be in a place where marketing and PR are the most heavily needed, because you're also right now the problem solvers for a industry filled with a lot of different players and different niches doing different things, looking to you guys to be like, so what do we do? So when I look at marketing and PR in general in any industry, but especially like in music, where because not a lot of people outside of music industry realize that a lot of the music, a lot of the money made is the tours and the in-person and the and the events, the live events and all of these different aspects, the clubs, and then all of the different roles attached to those things. And I almost kind of envisioned it's like the plug, like literally an actual plug was just like, and then you just hear like the fuse go out, like, and on an entire industry. But it was interesting. It was interesting to hear a couple of things in your story. One, I love the fact that you were raised with two parents with vast style of music. I came from that. I came from a house with parents where it was like 1 minute it's like Marvin Gaye and the Temptations, and then like you said, the Temptations, and then the next minute it's like Pavarotti. And the next one it was like it was the most. I mean, we had a lot of R&B and soul in the house, and so that actually became R&B and soul is actually what got me into hip hop eventually. But then classic rock was in the house too, and it was just a very interesting house. So I really resonated with me on that. But then also I wrote down a note that highly adaptable, because you had done so many different things within the industry. You literally have picked up. It's like saying, I worked in the car manufacturing, right? It's like saying I worked in there. I looked at the engine, I looked at the body, I worked in design, I worked in like you did, because you've been in so many different facets, it allows you to become much more adaptable in any market condition or worldly type event at any given time. That's creativity. That's entrepreneurship. That's just how it works. So that I think that, even though we're living in a very interesting time, when you mentioned you left in December of 2019, right? And you're like, oh man, and then January 2020 hits, and like, that's it. The plug was like, pulled out. I don't know, man. I think you were in the right place at the right time. Maybe that's just my spiritual side kicking in, but like, I find that there's never coincidences. It's like we sometimes remove ourselves from incidents. We don't even know why we're doing it. And we're just like, yeah, I need to change. Well, apparently the rest of the world needed to change, but you were ahead of them. You were just ahead of them. You know what I mean? When you flip the script like that and look at that perspective, I think you were just
saying, you know what? I completely agree with you, and I also am a big believer in, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and it's not about finding the silver cloud, but listen, the silver lining. Sorry, but if it's not, there's no point getting hung up on things. Like, you got to just be pragmatic, roll with the punches. Throwing cliches out my ass here, but yeah, you just got to move with things and be as positive as you can with it. But yes, I agree. In hindsight now, I actually think the timing did work out great. Jukebox and I, Alex, who runs Jukebox, we've known each other for 15 years. When I was actually in Leeds at university, he was setting up and running events. He was setting up the company, which is now 13, 14 years old or so. And we were working together then very loosely. We knew each other. We was talking about the events that I was working on, and we've been friends since then, and we've spoken about things. And there's been various points over the last 10 years or so where we've spoken and explored me maybe going over there, but timing's just never been quite right for either of us. And actually, the timing ended up being perfect in August. And yeah, like I said, it's been great. It's been great so far. Unfortunately, we've not been able to be in the office that much because for obvious reasons. But again, we are fortunate enough to work in an industry where, as long as I have my laptop and my phone, I can sit anywhere and I will do what I do.
I've been preaching that for like 15 years.
Yeah.
I remember last year, I had some family. They were like, hey, have you heard of Zoom? And I'm like, what is it you think I've been doing all these years? Like, I was like, am I just like that outcast? Like, you guys thought I was like some blogger? Because I'm an internet person and like had digital companies and all these things, but like work with big brands. I'm like, what is it?
Zoom? Yeah, it's crazy. I remember it's crazy to think how part and parcel these Zoom and Google Meets and Teams, etc., are as part of what we do now and just in everyday life, and that pre-pandemic as well. I remember when I must have been 12, must have been 20 years ago or so. And we were at my dad's friend's house and he had a video phone, and that was crazy huge. Like that was, and the machine was like a printer. It was massive. It was absolutely massive in this thing. And it was still the dial-in, the internet dial-in tone. It sounded like someone was making a phone call, and it was crazy. But just the thought of being able to look at someone on a screen live in another country at the same time is mind-blowing. It was a mind-blowing thought. And to think about what we have now, it's just crazy. It's crazy.
Right. And it's really simple as the phone. Right.
Yeah.
And now, and then now social media is having even more fun by putting like lives with multiple people into them. I mean, anywhere in the world. Yeah. I mean, well, so this brings up a great question that I want to discuss because the industry was already changing drastically. The last, first it started in the early 2000s, Napster was a huge disruption. I remember when I first got into the music industry, and then I exited very quickly. And here I am back again all these years later on the premise of what I preached 18 years ago. I think probably people are going to hear this on a couple of podcasts, but it was just, I saw what was going to happen with digital. And now, and then we started to see a shift again in 2010 to 2012. Now we're seeing massive shifts daily. I mean, because social media heightened that, but even beyond social media. And you brought up a really great point about, how people are, kids and others are growing up in this digitally connected world. And then you throw in a massive shift like last year where just, a shift needed to happen regardless of what the medium was to make it happen. Where do you see the changes that are happening that are really good? What do you see the changes that with events and like maybe what that's going to mean for the future? And, not on the premise of like the way things are currently, like in the more so in the innovation or like the approach and things like that, or what are just some of the trends that you're just seeing in general with the music industry?
I think for me, the most exciting, one of the most exciting things has been how live stream has evolved, and how people are using that in different ways. And listen, live streaming is nothing new. When I was running my drum and bass events, the first ones we were doing 10 years ago or so now, we had guys live streaming those shows for us, and you could watch them live on YouTube. And we had cameras set up and on the stage and in the crowd and stuff, and we had people monitoring the cameras to make sure that nothing indecent was going out, let's say. But listen, we were doing it, and people were tuning in, and it was happening. And people who couldn't come to the events were watching it, and we weren't ticketing the streams. People were just on there and watching. But the quality of the streams at that point was not great. It's still relatively low quality, so that's been happening. Like it's not a new thing. People, Facebook Live and all these things, like people have been doing this, right? This is not a pandemic thing. But what they have been doing and what companies have been doing is building this tech and finding ways to make the virtual or visual live streaming experience as immersive as humanly possible in order to justify charging someone to watch it. Right, because like you can only justify charging someone for something if the product is good enough, right? And otherwise, why would you pay for it, or why would you charge for it? So obviously, live streaming has been DJs have had two things to do for the last 18 months, 12 months: live stream or make music, right? And most of them are doing both, which has been great. But live stream numbers are so hit and miss. Facebook is a nightmare, as you know, as I'm sure a lot of people who are listening who knows the licensing rules around there are really difficult to get around, and whitelisting, getting approvals and whitelisting often causes more problems than not doing it. There is no rule that is going to get, well, there's no common rule really that gets you around it, short of playing only your own music that is unsigned it's unsigned. So yeah, during the pandemic, you've seen lots of platforms that have been launching and kind of purpose-built platforms to host live streams and to allow and license with PRS and working with closely with licensing companies so that they can actually legally put these streams out and not have them taken down every 2 minutes. So it's been great to see, and lots of DJs getting involved with that. And also what's been great to see is how many of the low-level artists, let's say, that like the non-profile DJs they are out there working their asses off, doing multiple shows a week to keep people dancing and keep people engaged, and they are the ones who are going to benefit off the back of this. I work with an amazing DJ from Yorkshire, Halifax, called Dale Castell. He has been a monster with live streaming over the last 12 months. He's so dedicated, it is unbelievable. I don't see anybody doing the numbers he's doing. He must be doing 9 hours. He's going to get me into trouble for getting the numbers wrong, but it's between 8 and 10 hours a week, live streaming on 3 days a week, getting incredible numbers, and he's built a hugely dedicated fan base through it. And he's not the only one. Other people are doing it. Brands are out there doing it really well. Defected are doing some incredible things, and I have to take my hat off to them because the stuff they're doing is just so much on another level. It's insane. But there's lots of people doing it, and it's what is now interesting to see is how this is implemented into events going forwards, right? Because I believe this is going to be a part of every type of event forever. Once the doors open up again, the technology is now there to really justify charging for these experiences. And like the difficulty for promoters for any event, whether that's music or sport or theatre or whatever it might be, is you're limited by capacity. Your revenue is limited by your capacity, and that limits how much money you can spend on artists and how much production you can put into the show and how amazing you can make that experience. And obviously, everybody has to work to a budget. Now, though, you put a camera, a really strong camera presence on an event, and open it up to a global audience, you've got no capacity restrictions. Yes, you're going to charge less for those tickets, but it's suddenly you've got a bottomless pit of revenue, right? And everybody is going to make use of this. Everybody. And if they're not, they're crazy, because this is going to be something that is rolled out. I mean, we've seen this again as an awesome company. Friends of mine, James, works with Live Now, and they're doing some amazing stuff. They did this show with Dua Lipa, and they've just announced some shows with Maroon 5. It is going to be from club shows and low-level DJs to major stadium tours and concerts. Everyone is going to do this. The technology is going to roll out. I think at the moment, the concerts and the gigs are the ones really pushing this and driving it forward, because they're the ones, I mean, that's their focus just now, in kind of really removing those capacity barriers. Clubs right now in the UK are quite focused on just getting the doors back open again. Obviously, we've had some pretty positive announcements over here, and hopefully things are going to open up on the 21st of June, although I'm not convinced it will be then. I think it will be July, but we're hopefully going to have some clubs open again this summer. And And since that announcement, that's been the big focus. But I think once the immediate rush to get clubs open again and everybody's scrambling to book the same DJ across 10 different dates, once that initial rush is out the way, the clubs are going to look at this and build in this live streaming, whether it's virtual or live or real, whatever it is, they're going to build it in. Clubs are going to invest in putting those cameras in place because it is going to be so lucrative going forward. You can sell millions of tickets now for any event.
Absolutely.
Which has never happened before.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's exciting because I no longer sound crazy. But when I said it, because like I was thinking about like even like back in the day, not back in the day, but like even like it's like a decade ago, I remember I was having this conversation about like clubs, and I'm like, well, what stops an LA club and a New York club having a wall, a gigantic wall? I still yet to see anybody do this. I'm saying it here live. Remember this right here. But I've always had this a lovely idea of like, why can't you have a massive wall that's really a screen on each side, and people can actually connect through the screen, right? And like see like each other, like an actual club on the other side, you know, the world or the country. And you know, you have that, but then it's also looped in to the internet on as well online. So it's a webcam and it's live streaming, you know, so you kind of have people who made it to the club, people who didn't make it to the club, but they're at home and they're with their friends. And so you have this like massive experience. You know, obviously you probably want to have a relationship with the two clubs or whatever and make that happen. But just that idea of, you said it already, there's not a capacity restriction. And so for me, it's, again, like when I say like, oh, it's just nice to know, like, I'm not crazy. It's because I'm coming from the tech side, and you look at it as people are getting more comfortable with digital than ever before. So because sometimes, you know, we're so used to, not, and unless it's like an iPhone that was created for us, outside of that, it's like, oh, okay, now we're bringing more people into digital to have a better relationship with the possibilities of what it can do for all of us, connection wise, creativity, you know, and which also leads into the logistics in the physical world. Like you also kind of brought up about, you know, sometimes the things that had to happen in the physical world or whatever. Well, the logistics, some of those logistics cause more barriers. And when you're online and streaming, costs come down, you know, barriers to entry come down, access to people goes up. And then you also brought up like fan bases and things like that, right? And I firmly believe we're just bridging the digital and the physical. And like when you mentioned that one DJ, how he's just crushing it, and it's like, well, yeah, because we're, you know, and this book actually talks heavily about a long tail, and it's really interesting about like, you'll always have hits, you'll always have hit makers, but rise of the micro, you know, of the people who are just curating their own fan base and like really engaging with them, and like their fans turn up. I mean, you got like 30,000 strong, you know, online. It may not, you know, sound like a lot to people who are playing like, oh, we want the millions. Like, don't overlook those 30,000 that show up on Twitch to watch this guy DJ or watch, you know, this gal sing or whatever it might be. So I think it's just a very, very exciting time overall.
100 for sure. I'm trying to think who it was. I can't remember what it was, but there was a conversation. I remember we were having a conversation around this. I feel like it was maybe Solomon. Might have been Solomon. I can't remember who it was, but the idea was basically that he would he would play it live from a club or his bedroom, and you'd have a big screen in multiple clubs. People would pay tickets to come and dance in the club, but you'd be watching a screen of him playing live as opposed to the DJ playing live, right? Which now to us sounds, yeah, obviously that's cool. You would do that, right? But 5 years ago, people are like, not a fucking chance am I doing that. Like, that's crazy. Why the fuck would I do that? And I actually even remember me thinking at the time, I was like, why would you do that? Right? But what the pandemic has done, it has just changed everything for everyone. It has dropped barriers, it's opened doors. It has changed how people perceive events and what they can experience, or how they can experience an event without physically being in that room, right? Because we've been forced to do it. Yeah. We've had to go and experience those experiences and watch these DJs online and go to online immersive events because we've had nothing else to do, right? But we're now, and I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. There is a segment of the audience who will never go to an event again. Right? It will be too far for them, or they don't care, or they've now had so many virtual experiences that they are so happy with that they don't need to go and spend £200 to go and see a physical event when they can spend £20, sit at home with their drink and their toilet and nobody's squishing them, and they're going to have an incredible experience, and it's going to be as immersive as you can possibly make it, and they're going to love it. Right. Yeah. And there is, and it's not a huge segment of the audience. Most people will go back out again, but this is going to be something that we do. This is not going anywhere. Right. And these perceptions have changed so much now that people are just more open to anything than they've ever been.
I understand why there was, because I've worked with brands, big brands and luxury brands, and the adaptation of digital from Napster to TikTok, as I always say, and everything in between, my entire way dealing with big brands and luxury brands and all kinds of companies, the resistance that comes from it. To me, it was always the possibilities that come with it. I'm like, and it would be like, practically want to shake people. I'm like, but I get the resistance, especially for an artist, going back even 5 years ago, and you're like, oh, it's hard to almost maybe see that. And it's like, because artists are, there's the music and there's the art and then in person, but I'm like, yeah, but technology is that bridging of the gap of like, how far can you make an immersive experience so more people can enjoy your work? And how far can impact really go, right? And so now we just came across a time where it's forcing innovation, which most crises, historically speaking, throughout all of history, every time there's a major pandemic or crisis, is when the most innovation was founded. Like historically, it's actually quite interesting to look at all the most historic, innovative companies. That's when they were founded. So I like that it just pushed it wide open for artists to be like, maybe we need to explore this. It's like, yeah, maybe you need to slow down to speed up. Like maybe you do need to slow down and actually look at like the possibilities of like, okay, what do we need to do different? Because isn't that life anyways? Isn't that like evolution of anything? Sure. It's like, how could I push the boundaries of where I'm already at before I get too comfortable and miss how to evolve with a growing, changing world? So I think it's exciting, and
it's amazing.
And I was going to lead into kind of, when you were talking about that one DJ, and it was making me think about a lot of like music influencers, right? And I would love to discuss that and like get your take on music influencers, because that has such a like merging way of looking at it. And what I mean by that is you've got everybody from the actual artist to the TikToker that just likes to dance to certain songs, which makes the song blow up, which makes the person who's dancing blow up, which makes the content blow up. I mean, like you have this interesting kind of, which is the premise of this show. It's like, yeah, because the culture of music, it's not even industry, it's just the culture of music in general as a bond is like changed the landscape. So I love to get your take on music influencers and how that's really changed and how that's going to continue to change.
That's a space that we work across a fair bit as well, actually, but not in the truest sense of the word influencer as such. When we think of influencers now, we think of individuals, people who are, like you said, dancers or commentators, people who sit and just they've got a face to they are the individual is the influencer. I have mixed experiences with individual influencers, most of them positive, to be honest. And there is no shying away from the fact that there is a significant number of the next however many billionaires in the world that are going to be kids who have been shooting content from their bedroom. That's the world that we live in now, right? It's you can't get away from that. I think TikTok is a very different beast in itself to Instagram and Facebook. I don't see the influencer model working in the same way on there. I think Instagram and Facebook, obviously, they were born pre this influencer world. TikTok has been born for the influencer world, and that is what the platform is built on. I see YouTube are doing a similar thing, shorts, I think it's called, and obviously Instagram have launched Reels. But again, like the audiences across these platforms are very, very different. We find really different. The different types of content, the content that works on TikTok does not work on Instagram, and vice versa. Like it is really, really segmented, and it's really different. And finding the ways to work with influencers in the right way across each platform is key to having successful campaigns. We on Instagram, Facebook, we work with influencer channels, right, as opposed to influencers. We work with 30, 40 odd channels across various different focuses of electronic music and dance channels and techno channels and house music and EDM and electro and bass and urban and mainstream. And we run some awesome campaigns through those networks and through those channels where we promote festivals and headliners and announcements and product launches and record releases and live streams and all kinds of things. And those channels are, we call them influencer channels because they are music focused, techno and chill and EDM nomads and these are influencer channels. They are music focused influencer channels. Whereas TikTok, you have influencers, right? These are not, I wouldn't call them an influencer channel. It's an influencer who has a profile page on a platform, right? And they are generating massive interest and like fair play. That's what people buy into it. Again, the audiences are crazy different. Like we've tested out various different things and campaigns and stuff that we've worked on where we've dropped the same bits of content from the same channels to similar sized audiences, like followings, on each of the platforms. And the difference in engagement is just insane. Like really, really insane. You have to be really, really catered and work with the right partners. TikTok is, I know that they are positioning, or they're trying to reposition themselves, I should say, as this tool to build new business, right? That's what they want to position themselves as. They seem to be wanting to move away from this kind of dance craze perception, which is what they've become entirely known for, which I really don't like that. As I have to say, I don't like the dance crazes at all. Like dancing is one thing. People creating dance content and dancing over a track, that's one thing. That's cool. That's great. That's fine. But the whole craze and getting people to imitate it, and I don't buy into that. Right? It's and music doesn't, and I mean electronic music in particular also is not really buying into that. I mean, listen, we're seeing like the power of TikTok is insane. Fleetwood Mac going back into #1 in the charts because a guy is skating on a skateboard with dreams in the background. Like that is just insane when you break it down like that and you think about how that can work. Pop music, mainstream, hip hop, trap, urban, that kind of stuff it works. These dance crazes work. The electronic audience we find is significantly more engaged through influencer channels on Instagram and Facebook than they ever will be with influencers on TikTok. I say ever will be, obviously, as generations go. The current generation, they're not going to, they will slowly move over to TikTok and they'll be involved in there, but they won't engage with influencers the way they do with influencer channels, right? If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Gen Z, that's only going to grow. These kids are only going to grow. They're going to live and breathe TikTok and Shorts and whatever other platform Facebook eventually decide to pull out their ass, because I'm sure they're going to have something that's going to compete with it at some point or another. But and that's something that's going to happen. And because of that, it's worthwhile. It's worth it. It's worthwhile kind of looking at ways to utilize the platform and work with influencers well enough in the right ways. For us, we find the influencer channels are much easier to work with. I mean, the money involved in the influencer side of things is just obscene.
I'm drooling over. I'm drooling over here at a lot of what you're saying, because I feel it. Because it's like I like that you address the individual influencer and then influencer channels, because I look at influencer channels as aggregated interest communities, right? Yeah. And I have some of the same views as you with so I'm an accidental influencer is what I call it. Like, so it's weird when I get introduced as that, like at a talk or at a panel, and they're like, and an influencer, I'm like, because I got on before they were really using that term. And so like when I grew a couple of the channels to hundreds of thousands, it was like, yeah, but no, because I don't want to create for the mere fact of creating or starting a trend. And I think that a lot of times you have influencers, like, especially that you made a great point. Instagram and Facebook were created kind of before, you're right, before we were really using the terminology of influencer in that capacity. And then TikTok was created for that. And so it's sort of like, how far can we push content? And I'm all for breaking boundaries, of course, but from an authentic place, not to kowtow to like, try to, take away from the art, and to solely just get attention to get attention. It's like, well, no, I think if you're getting attention for art, than, you know, an authenticity. But I'm a big purveyor of integrity and authenticity. So I guess I'm a little all over the place with it, but it's just like I look at the individual influencer and it's like, yeah, I get it, you know, and I take nothing away from the fact that it certainly helps grow trends in music and all that other stuff. But I do like the idea of community always. And, you know, so you're saying like using influencer channels, it's like, hey, here's like where a lot of the interactivity at the next level is happening versus just, please let me get a like and follow in your eyeballs for 2 seconds and then grow it for just that short-term play. I guess it's because I'm a long-term thinker. I'm always going to be a long game player. So I guess that's where, you know, and so I hear exactly what you're saying, you know, where it all goes. I mean, where I want to take it is way beyond the, you know, the TikToks and the Instagram and the Facebook, because there's still platforms geared around attention, which then turns into advertising dollars, which is why I find myself more for the player of blockchain. But that's a whole other conversation we should have another time, whatever. But and really where I see, because it's community centric focused and influencer channel focused, where it's like, hey, here's where we aggregate you know, creativity with all the other components and ownership and direct lines to the, you know, to the people partaking and integrating and all this stuff. So, but I love how you address both for sure, because there's, you know, like you said, there's just the individual that's like commentating and and all these other things, and then there's the, you know, and then there's the channels. So it's going to be interesting to watch where that all goes in like the next few years, you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for sure. It's I'm not crazy on TikTok. My fiance is lives on it. Like she's on it all the time. So I've got these fucking songs playing around constantly. But listen, it's I don't want to be too. I hope I'm not coming across or trying to be too harsh on influencers. I get what they're doing, and I get, because I don't get everything. I'm not receptive to some of it doesn't mean I don't get it. Like I do get it. And listen, there are audiences out there. I've spent my life positioning things to various different target audiences, and that is ultimately what they're doing. Like you're creating content for an audience who wants it, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I'll always promote creativity and the concepts of platforms that allow people to express themselves, because it's been how I was the guy that was like, Napster is the greatest thing alive, MySpace, High Five, Facebook, you know, Instagram, and not to mention a bunch of different things in between all those, right? And like, you know, blogging, Tumblr, you know, now and even with TikTok, I totally, you know, and I see people of all ages just dominating it. For me, it was mostly a time constraint. At this point, I was like, look, I'm doing a lot of media, and I'm one man. Even though there's teams of people and stuff like that, I'm like, you know, but I see a use case all around for a lot of different, you know. I like people using platforms to show what possibilities can happen. And then like, I think you said something earlier, was just kind of like, it's level the playing field, but we're going to see who's going to last and who's not, you know what I mean? And like, what's going to happen and what'll become just a here today, gone tomorrow trend, and what will be like sustainable. Right. So it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely.
What do you guys have anything exciting coming up, or any projects that you're working on, you know, and in general you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, we're working on some cool, some really cool. What do you mean, on influencer stuff, or just in general?
No, and everything with you, with Jukebox, like things are just exciting right now.
Yeah, I mean, the buzz. It's been a crazy month or two. Yeah. I can't remember when the announcement was exactly. It was a month ago now. So the end of February, we had the announcement here from the government that the roadmap is to open up on the 21st of June. The 2-3 weeks leading up to that announcement, we could feel this buzz, like this, all these conversations, these hundreds of conversations that we've been having for the last 6 months with promoters and events and festivals. And it's just, let's have a conversation now and get ready for when things come back. And then we'd stop speaking for a few months and then we come back. All those conversations started coming up started bubble up to the top again. And we could just feel everything, every conversation we were having, everyone was a little bit more positive. It just felt like there was something good was coming. But I don't think anybody anticipated the news that we got, or the roadmap that we got, to be as positive as it was. And since then, I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen it over your side, but there must have been 400 events launched in the UK in the last 3 weeks. Right? And it has just been, it's insane. Every kind of genre, every weekend, every club, every festival, every promoter, and tickets are absolutely flying. So, I mean, we're working with some awesome kind of first year festivals, which I've had this conversation a few times recently. We work with some major festivals and events, some of the biggest ones around the world. And it's great. We love it. It's always great to work with big established festivals, right? But the reality is there's only so much impact any agency, any company can make on a really well-established event. How much impact can a PR agency make to come in and run for Glastonbury, for argument's sake? Like Glastonbury is one of the biggest, it's one of the most loved, biggest, best festivals. It is the biggest and best festival in the world. I'm gonna label it as that because it is my second home. But how much impact can you make on that festival? You can get it the coverage it deserves. You can do some cool ideas, but you're not. How much impact can you make? Like I hope that makes sense. But when you're working with a first year festival, young promoters, hungry guys some of them who have really taken a hit from the pandemic over the last year. Some of them have moved shows to this year. Some of them are just now launching new events off the back of the pandemic. That is where we love to get involved in from the ground up, working with them from the first year, helping them shape the concept, the design, the branding, the lineups, the logistics, everything around it. Obviously, the marketing and PR side, to be able to work with promoters from the ground up and build that from nothing is what this is all about ultimately. And but this kind of goes back to what I was saying about right from the start, standing on those stairs in Leeds, looking down at that crowd. That's when I knew it's like I want to build this. At that time, I was selling tickets for a promoter, right? And it wasn't my show, but you're involved in it. You feel like you're part of it. And at that point, you're like, I want this. This is what I want. I want to build concepts. I want to fill venues. I want to fill stadiums. So yeah, to be able to work with those promoters like that, we're working, like I said, an awesome festival down in Surrey called One Out Festival, which I do all the programming for, and we've got Roger Sanchez and Hannah Wants headlining that, which is great. Tickets are flying out for that. We're working with some incredible promoters in Liverpool. They're running a festival for the first time this year called the One in the Woods, which is like one side is crazy techno and one side is all drum and bass. So really segmented audiences, but within the same event, and they just work so well. They've got Ben Clark and Nastia and Jeff Mills headlining the techno side, and Subfocus and Camel and Crooked on the drum and bass side. We're working with a new festival down in Essex called Zenfest, which is wicked. They've got Richie Ahmed headlining. So the festival side, there's loads of stuff. We're working on some really exciting non-event concepts, some of which, the majority of which I can't actually mention too much about just now. But some really cool kind of hotel-led concepts and travel stuff and experience-led ideas. I think that's a big thing for us. Like, we are a global agency. We work all over the world. We love boutique, unique experiences. From pushing that out and creating them and working with creators who build those shows, that's a dream for us. It really is. It's great. I mean, we're working some awesome shows around the world. We work on SXM in the Caribbean and in St. Martin. We're working on a youth and meat festival in the Dominican Republic next year. We'll work with Electric Zoo out in New York. We're working with some guys in Dubai. I mean, we are in every continent except for the Antarctic. I said that right? Antarctic? Oh,
yeah.
Antarctic. Yeah. And it's exciting. Like, there was just so much today. We've had some conversations about some really cool platforms that are launching, some different tech platforms across live streaming and kind of just various different concepts. Yeah, I could reel off like very loose bits of information about things that I can't really talk about too much, but yeah, loads of stuff, loads of really exciting. They're difficult to put, I think, to say exactly what the most exciting thing is, but yeah, it's we're busy.
Yeah, and I look forward to the invite to all of these beautiful locations where I will, of course, do this live and reporting through streaming to hundreds of thousands of people online. We can do
it. That's fine. I like the pitching to me. That's fine.
Absolutely. I would have showed up anyways. To be perfectly honest with you, I would have just showed up anyways.
For sure. But yeah, there's some awesome stuff. It's just great, and it's great. And I think that as well, like, there are going to be some amazing experiences that are coming off the back of this. Like people are shifting, like what they want, and the type of events they want to go to, and what they want to experience. And it's now people are less. I think people who previously were like, I have to go to a 20,000 capacity festival. That is the only festival I'll go to. Those people are now like, I want to go to a 500 cap show in the Caribbean, right? I want to go and experience travel and the world and experience music and culture and lifestyle in a more boutique way than I previously thought I ever would.
That is the third time someone has said that. I wholeheartedly agree. It's creating more intimacy in the event going experience. Like, no, I don't want tens of thousands of people. I want like 500 people at this location, who are dedicated to this artist or this, experience.
100%.
Yeah, it's changing. And that all came off of also a lot of the event goers saying that. Plus, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of them just saying, oh, no, I'll just stay at home and stream, or no, I'm cool. I want to pick and choose the right ones that feel good. I think the pandemic in a lot of ways slowed people down to be like, what kind of environments do I want to be around? Like, how many people do I want to be around? Or how much, like I want to be interactive and social, but I want to be intentional. And I feel like that's going to just make, I like you said, boutique, unique experiences, right? So I think it's going to be fantastic to watch what happens in the event space.
I'm excited.
Right?
I'm excited.
Where can everybody find out about you? Jukebox, any of the brands that, with the cool things you're doing, they can connect with you online. Where can they find you online?
For sure. We've actually just launched our new website and our new rebrand. Our website is jukeboxpr.co.uk. We've got loads of examples and all the work we've done in different case studies and who we are and what we do and what the future looks like. And that's all on there. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, which you can search Jukebox Media or Jukebox PR. I think we've changed our. It's one of the, what's one of them? It's one of the two of them. But yeah, we are. We're about. And again, if anyone wants to hit us up on the website or wherever, we are open to talk to everyone and about anything. We love to get in a call and have a chat and see what people are up to and how we can help and where we can support and find some innovative ways to work together. That is what it's all about. And that's any industry. Like, I think that's one thing we've actually not even spoken about really, but a big thing for me and a big thing off the back of this that we were saying before about barriers being dropped is like, so many doors are now open as to how music connects with brands outside of music and industries outside of music, and how those industries use music to connect audiences and use that platform. And it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world.
It is. I mean, it really is that common bond. It's a common denominator in a lot of things. And, you can have a brand, but what makes an experience a lot of times is like the music playing in the background, or the content, or the videos, or the event, the experience. I mean, from fashion and design to, tech, you're seeing it. Music's being integrated everywhere. It always has been, but now more than ever. So that's incredible, man. I really appreciate having you on. I can actually believe we're going on like an hour and 10. So these things they go long, man. They always do. But really, really appreciate having you on the show and talking, and then also just all the help, with Orlove that you guys have been doing. It's incredible. And it's exciting. It's a lot of fun. I mean, even with the show and booking out, we're like booked out for months actually. So it's truly incredible, and we're looking forward to just a lot more that's coming. And jukeboxpr.co.uk for everybody listening, right?
That is it. Jukeboxpr.co.uk.
For everybody listening, we really appreciate everybody coming on. Josh Karpf, you guys, jukeboxpr.co.uk. You can find him there. Reach out. Look, it's a changing time. So creatives, brands, fashion, design, digital, you guys, like, music's a part of all this. So as you said, the barriers are all been like lifted. So I always tell everybody, I'm like, you have no reason not to. But listen, for everybody listening, thank you guys all for tuning into On Top of the Covers. It means so much to us, the movement, to the contribution of music culture, not necessarily industry, but like at scale. Thank you guys for giving us all the feedback, by the way, lately on this journey on Apple. Please give us a 5-star written review on Apple. It helps grow the show. Gotta always give that plug because we know how algorithms still work. You can also follow us on all major platforms at We Are Orlove and myself at Matt Gottesman on Insta. And be sure to subscribe to Orlove YouTube channel. That's where we have weekly launches of the web series Under the Covers with artists from around the world, as well as exclusive footage from today's show that you can watch if you're not just listening on Apple and Spotify and Google and iHeart and everywhere else, like 30 other platforms. We just really, really appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. And, just want to truly thank you guys for all the love. We're out.